follows an extract from my book Letters from the Broom Cupboard, available from Amazon. Dear reader, on a more serious note, I probably need to mention that being a music tutor is something that I genuinely believe has great worth. Of course, it's a job, and it's a very pleasant job, but it's far more than that. It's a vocation that I honestly treasure. I realise that I sound like I'm sitting in front of an interview panel. In fact, I've said those very words in just that setting. But that doesn't detract from the earnest sincerity of my making such a statement. Being outside the mainstream system of education means that I'm mercifully free from external constraints. I'm free to speak from the heart. It's a shame that the reason I have the opportunity to share these private thoughts with you is because somebody hasn't bothered to show up for their lesson to benefit from these droplets of wisdom. Such is life. I suppose that the standard verbiage would be that playing an instrument enhances personal means of expression and communication. It also improves numeracy skills, although in my case I'm not sure that this has been the case, or goodness knows how bad I'd be without this extra dimension. There's no doubt that all such advantages are true. Research has shown quite conclusively that playing an instrument improves your IQ and fires up activity in all areas of your brain. Music brings all of this and so much more. I've already confided in you, dear reader, that as a child I was shy and awkward. For almost the whole of my school life I struggled to find my place, both socially and intellectually. The worst times were at the start of high school, but my doom was set from my first years in primary school. I must have been a serious young thing. It's a wonder and a mercy that God paired me up with an extrovert on a motorbike for a husband. I spent the first term of high school in a state of severe shell shock. When a guy asked me to go on a date with him, I was genuinely confused. Why was he asking me? Who was he? I hardly knew him, no. Why on earth would anyone want to go to the school disco anyway? I was never really convinced that anybody actually attended these things. How could you stand the noise? Some years later I decided that I'd better find out what all the fuss was about and ventured out to a nightclub. Within half an hour I was calling my dad, begging him to take me home. I felt like I was at an auction in a cattle market. I've since learned to go out and have a good time, but under the safe escort of my extrovert husband. At the tender age of 14, I found something of an identity, as well as a certain amount of ability, as I became engrossed in the study of ancient heroes such as J.S. Bach and Franz Schubert. In the hallowed days of GCE O-level, I had to learn extracts of Bach Toccata and Fugue in D minor and Schubert's Trout Quintet from memory. I found that, after hard work, I could understand the form of a 4-part fugue. The words subject, counter-subject, inversion and truncation began to make hazy sense. It was like being initiated into an elite group. There were only about 5 of us in the class, and, although I wasn't one of the brightest, I was at least one of the few. I can appreciate that this syllabus didn't attract the hordes and was exceptionally discriminatory. But I do wonder if, in an attempt to make the subject more inclusive, we've now excluded those who would revel in such study. It's possible that the subject content has become so diluted that it's become null and void. I did warn you that I wasn't bound by the constraints of external governing bodies. Here speaks a musical snob of the old school. I had the same opportunities and challenges in the physics laboratory, and I don't count it as loss that I was unable to join in the elite there, and I imagine that others might experience the same thrill of belonging on becoming a valued member of the netball or rugby team. Well, I say that I can imagine it. I'm sure that the situation does occur, but my imagination can't actually summon up any images here. I was that kid who never got picked for the team, any team, and that was just fine by me. Even if the addition meant that the team gained an extra player, they'd rather do it without that extra number if that extra was me. I wonder if, in an attempt to be inclusive, we've actually precluded those who would most benefit and clipped the wings of those who might really fly in their chosen field. I noticed that sports days are now team-based so that no single person ever really wins. Sports day was the worst day imaginable as far as I was concerned, but I would never want to take away the opportunity for somebody else to show their worth. I came top often enough in the spelling tests. Sports day was somebody else's turn. Taking this line of thinking a little further, I saw the most ironic thing in a school corridor. At the end of a long, otherwise empty corridor was a solitary classroom with a closed door on which there was the label, Inclusion Room. Is it just me, or does that seem a little on the fishy side? I think I've made my point. For me, the really golden days began when I first started to play the flute and the piano. Once again, I wasn't the best, and I never made it into the higher echelons of those chosen few favourites, or so it seemed at the time. I had to practice hard and none of it came easily. I'm not sure that it ever really does. Paradoxically, although I was never in the group of elite favourites, out of those small few of us that studied music at school, I'm the only one who has remained in the subject for their chosen profession. There's no doubt it's a precarious industry. If you're looking for a regular income and regular working hours, forget it. Looking back, I realised that perhaps I didn't need to be quite the introvert that I was. Perhaps it can actually be cool to be able to play Teddy Bear's Picnic in a pub in Amsterdam and get free grolsch for your buddies. Even churning out a few bars of Mozart isn't anything to be shy about, if only I'd known it. There must have been some appealing qualities to lure my husband over the threshold of the college art department and into the forbidden territory of the classical music department refectory. Meaningful relationship building is always at its best over a vending coffee machine. Gratefully yours. For the full collection of Letters from the Broom Cupboard, available from Amazon in paperback or as an ebook, follow the links in the cards in the description box or find details on my website at sharonbill.com. Thanks for listening.